a gorgeous car, and it also is unique because it only has a driver's side rear or mirror. Look, what's that thing called?
Side mirror.
Side mirror. Thank you.
I can't help thinking, somewhere in the universe, there has to be something better than man. Has to be. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ascension to 10.
All right.
Here we are.
We're back.
I figured out the thing this time, so it wouldn't just go on forever and ever.
It sounded like a glitch at the end there. It sped up for me.
Well, yeah, it got a little sticky, so it went from like half volume to also just went, shut off.
Of course, the audience won't hear that. They'll hear the regular one.
Yeah, so of course not.
This is out of context, I guess.
Brian will really tune it up and just be like, what the fuck are these guys talking about?
Well,
typical day. Hey, Jad.
Yeah.
Two things.
Okay.
The first one, I can't believe I forgot this on the last episode, but you teased it 2 episodes ago on the Starship Troopers 2.
Yeah.
About the bed.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that.
We did get the bed. Yeah. Yeah. So we did get the bed.
Okay.
No cuts. Everything went fine. Everything looks great.
Yeah.
So no problems there. But the first night we get in the bed and we sit on it and we lay down and I sit in it and it goes, and I'm like, oh shit. So literally every time I get into bed, it has this so I can't figure out where it's coming from because I checked the beams in the middle and everything looks fine. So it must be either it's too close to the wall or the screws are too tight or too loose. So I have to sit there. I'm gonna eventually just take the whole fucking thing apart to figure out where the squeak is coming from.
Oh man,
but it's just a mess. It looks great though, but it's just so annoying. Like sometimes when I'm turning from one side to the other, you just get it's like, oh great. So,
I'm glad
we'll get there.
I'm glad you're halfway there, man.
Progress.
No, you haven't.
Aesthetically, it looks fantastic.
Well, that's all that matters, right? You just have to live with it.
Right.
You can look at it, but not enjoy it.
That's right.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, it's nice to have. The other thing I was going to talk about is I forgot to talk about it last week when we were talking about Beyond White Space, but
yeah,
it deals with Bois. It's kind of a typical day. I don't know if it's really a typical. I don't know, but I'm gonna tell it.
Yep,
if that's okay with you.
Hell yeah.
Our cat Bois last week got out on a Monday night, and it's not like Bois goes out in our backyard, and that's fine. We talked about that, but he got out through the garage to the front, so he was, off on his own. We had been talking about for weeks, we should really get a collar on him with a tracker to make sure that we can find him in case he gets out. All these kind of things. Well, we never did, and then that last Monday night, he got out. And we could not find him for 3 whole fucking days. So the dude was out just hitting the town of our neighborhood for 3 days. We posted on every single social media. We've put it on like our ring notifications, our lost pets of our county, all these other things. Like people kept sending pictures like, oh, is this your cat? And it's like, no, that's not my cat. Like that's a different cat. It's just like, and then it turned out to like every other day someone loses a cat. So I was like, oh, great.
Wow.
So we're never going to find our cat. So we're getting really frustrated. But come Thursday night, we are supposed to go for a trip on Friday. And we're like demoralized. And like basically any free time we had, it was like 4 or 5 times a day going out looking for him, walking the neighborhood, trying to find him in different areas and stuff. And my wife got a message on Facebook. They're like, is this your cat? And they sent a picture and it's like, oh, yeah, that's our cat. Like just asleep, lounging on their patio furniture, like a half mile away from our house. Wow. Like he trekked a ways away. So we finally get him back. And the first thing he does is just sleeps like 48 hours. He just sleeps. And luckily we felt like we had to do something to make sure that we felt like we knew he was coming back. So we ordered him a new collar and a tag, and now he is tagged, and that guy is back.
Excellent.
But it was
glad to hear
exhausting, 72 hours of trying to find this guy.
Yeah.
So, but he's back.
Ding, ding, ding. Good job finding him.
Yep. And now he has a little bell on his collar. So whenever he walks around, you hear this ding, 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 ding.
Hell
so
yeah.
now instead of just being Bo, he's Bojangles.
Oh, nice.
So it's good to have him.
Epic. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Yep.
Bo is evolving into quite the content maker for the show.
Yeah, no kidding. I never thought he would be.
So we gotta make sure he's safe. Yep. Sticking around.
Yep, he's back.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
It's good. Yep, definitely.
That's good. That's good.
So this is our 13th official episode.
Yep. Yeah.
And we
canon.
And
13th canon.
13th canon. There you go. Is that what we call it?
Those specials aren't canon. They're extra lore. Because really, this is perfect. This would be, well, we did 3 movies for that listener special, so
that's true.
But yeah, this is our 13th season 1 episode.
Season 1.
Season 1.
Yeah. Thank you for the reminder of season 1.
Stay tuned to find out when season 2 starts. You may have to wait a while.
Season 1 ever ends.
You may have to wait. But stay tuned. So yes, your point is apt though, because 13th episode and the movie of the day is the 13th Floor. It just so happened to work out that way because, as you may remember from the previous episode, I didn't pick this movie, even though it was my choice.
Yeah,
this was
really chance.
This was serendipity because I gave Spenny 4 movie. What's the movie announcer? The fuck am I trying to say? Trailer voiceover guy. I gave Spenny 4 options to choose from.
Yeah.
And as a little reminder, he chose the line from the following trailer announcer thing. I'm going to have to pull it up here. Golly. All right. This was the prompt that Spenny chose. You can go there even though it doesn't exist. That was enough to grab Spenny's attention.
After watching the movie is the worst connection to the
and we'll talk about this. The title is whatever. Irrelevant. Now,
but
okay.
Speaking of serendipity, this movie is connected to your ankle when it comes to serendipity, because I mean, two stories of serendipity here. 13th episode, your ankle not breaking. That's just fantastic.
Okay, as you might remember, though, it's not all about serendipity. I have bones of steel.
Oh, that's true.
If you recall, listeners may
This
recall the
movie does
fact that
not have bones of steel.
scientifically, my bones are off the charts density, as has been measured.
Off the charts. Off the charts.
So, but yes, good callback.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, I can get the sense that you're going to lean one way towards this movie, and I might be leaning the other way.
We'll see.
What I perceive you to be leaning. Perception, of course, being subjective, as is kind of the basis of this movie. Now, I will admit, so my criteria for finding those 4 movies were they had to kind of look ridiculous from the trailers that I watched. The trailers were insane. And I haven't told you what the other 3 were. And so we'll kind of use that as a pool for later down the road. But this one, the trailer looked so ridiculous, and it looked like a ghetto Matrix. That's kind of why I chose it, because it looked like just a cheap ass Matrix movie.
Well, you know what's so funny about this is the Matrix fucking came out a month later.
Oh, I thought this came out after the Matrix. Okay, this is solidifying my point then, and what I'll get to later. But
the ghetto Matrix. Well, they both have a similar concept. That's why it's like it's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, that's that classic Hollywood thing where 2 movies come out that have similar ideas.
Yeah,
it's like Deep Impact and
Armageddon.
Yeah,
they came out the same summer, right? That was a blockbuster summer, boy.
Yeah.
All right, now choose which one of those did you like more?
Armageddon was more entertaining, I would say. Honestly,
I mean, it had the Michael Bay effect, right?
Deep Impact. Yeah, I don't know if I remember Deep Impact as much as Armageddon. I mean, I saw it, but I feel like I've seen Armageddon multiple times just because it's on more.
I don't know why this is so just present in my mind. I haven't seen Deep Impact or even thought about it. I haven't seen it in over a decade, probably.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe 20 years, something like that, or 15 years. I don't know when it came out. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, I haven't seen it probably since I saw it the first time. I haven't thought about it until this moment. But I can still clearly picture it's towards the end, and Elijah Wood's in it, right? He's one of the kids that he discovers the meteor, right? Or asteroid.
Yeah, you could be right. I'll double check here.
No, who cares? It doesn't fucking matter, man. It's just this high school kid, right? And whatever. He has this girlfriend, and their families. Yeah, they're like, some people are going to go live underground, right? Because that's the only way to save some civilization. And because he discovered
Elijah Wood is in it.
Okay.
Yes.
Because he discovered it, he got a couple tickets or whatever to go live in a bunker. And he said, no, my girlfriend and her family's, she's good. They're with me. And the trucks came, and I don't know, they just didn't get on or something. And they weren't allowed. And he said, because they're with me. And so
because they're with me.
And so what, I don't know, if something happens and he jumps out of the truck or does a barrel roll or whatever, the family
Did he ride a dirt bike or something?
What?
All right. Did he ride a dirt bike or something?
Yes, that's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
The thing that I remember is that the girlfriend's dad has this dirt bike, and his garage organization was to have mason jars full of shit. And the screw-on lids were screwed up into this cabinet so that he could just screw up the jars and then unscrew them, and that's where they stayed, right?
Yeah.
And Elijah Wood had to go. He was searching for them, right? He went to their house. They were gone because they evacuated. They went up climbed a hill or something. And he's rummaging through. He's trying to find the dirt bike keys because that's the only thing that he thinks can take him to the place. And he's going through all these jars. And I don't know why. I can clearly picture this scene of him going through these mason jars, trying to find this dirt bike key. And it made me think that the mason jar thing is kind of clever, right? It's, a pre-Pinteresty way to Pinteresty way to organize some
Pretty sure I've seen it on Pinterest too.
Right.
So,
But how annoying that must have been for if the dad wanted to go dirt biking, and had to go rummage through one of these mason jars to find the key.
Well, he probably knew. I mean, he probably knew which one it was.
Yeah, but the key was buried in the mason jar full of junk.
Well, I mean, when's the last time he drove the
I suppose,
dirt
right?
bike?
It was like hanging on to his youth, I bet. Is any of this relevant? What?
Yo, what a trajectory we've taken. Let's talk about. Here's the 13th floor. Let's talk about Deep Impact and Elijah Wood driving a dirt bike.
Oh. Okay.
Oh man. Okay.
Okay. You want to hit us with some
infos?
So
the 13th floor. This movie was actually directed by a German filmmaker named Joseph Rusneck. But one of the things that was interesting about this film is one of the producers, not an executive producer, but just a producer, was Ronald Emmerich. And if that name sounds familiar, here are some of the movies he's done: 10,000 BC, Stargate, Independence Day, Godzilla.
Which one? Soldier. The one with Cusack?
Godzilla with Matthew Broderick.
Oh, Broderick.
And
Cusack.
Universal Soldier, The Patriot, and with Mel Gibson. Day After Tomorrow, 2012, and then most recently Moonfall. So he's got some big hitters, but he was only credited as like just a producer. So I was just curious. It was just kind of a curious note.
He kind of ruled the 90s and early 2000s, huh?
Yeah. He did. Some good ones.
Yeah, there's just some bangers in there.
So one of the things we talked about was The Matrix. So The Matrix came like a month after this. Similar concept, as we've mentioned.
Yep.
Some might argue probably a better film in a way.
Yeah. Easily.
Yeah,
it's a better movie. Yeah.
But the thing that was interesting is this is based on a book. And it's called Simulacron 3. And it was published under the title Counterfeit World. And it was written in 1964 by an American author named Daniel Galois in the United States. And it was kind of the first interpretation of kind of virtual reality. So I thought that was kind of interesting. A lot of the character names come from that book.
Okay.
That we see in the film. So kind of a cool throwback to that, and just kind of the insight to, or the person being able to write a book about what life might be like with virtual reality and someone controlling something else through a computer and stuff. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, on that note, actually, maybe I'll table what I was going to say in relation to that about the argument for simulated reality till after we talk about the movie.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I suppose we can jump into it. I thought that Matrix came out before. I know they were both from 99, but
yep.
Okay. So biggest issue with this movie, I'll say right off the bat, is that the title is irrelevant to what is happening.
Totally.
The 13th Floor is about a software company that develops a machine that you can download your consciousness into a simulated reality, and the programmed characters within this simulation, the engineers come to find out, are, for lack of a better term, conscious. So they created a perfect or a near perfect simulation where the programmed characters are their own people that have their own lives, that when they jack themselves into the system, they can interact with them in meaningful ways. But importantly, the programmers that hook themselves up into the system are taking the place of an avatar, in a sense.
Yeah.
And that avatar has its own life. So the main character, Doug, jacks into his character.
Hey, Douglas.
Hey, funny. He has his own character named, what is it?
Douglas Hall.
Yeah, Doug, when he jacks in, though, he takes over for someone else. I don't know, it's a different name. He has a mustache.
David.
No, David is the... David,
no,
yeah.
you're... Yeah.
God, well, whatever. It's like... The point is, when no one's jacked into the system, right? And there's only 3 people that do it. They're the 3 software people. When they're not jacked into the system, their avatars are living their own life.
Right.
And when the software people jack in, they take over for their avatar, and the avatar loses consciousness and all memories for the time duration that they're jacked in. Okay.
Yep.
Now, so it's interesting because the software engineers designed this simulated world to be in the late 1930s. And so the movie opens with this scene of some old guy just writing a note with a fountain pen. And he's walking through this kind of speakeasy hotel ballroom place, and then goes home, goes to bed. And then another homie wakes up out of a computer chair thing.
Well, you're missing the fact that they go through, they teleport through the speed of light,
right?
And
some space foam. Space foam. And so while he was in this 1930s era, he wrote this note to leave for his colleague to explain some very important stuff. Now, keep this in mind. He's in the simulation. He writes a note for someone, undisclosed at this point, that he leaves inside the simulation. So in order to get that note, another person would have to log into the system, jack in, find the person he left the note with, and then, I guess, make sense of it. So it's a bit convoluted, right? It's kind of a roundabout way to spread information. Some might argue inefficient way of means of communication, especially when it turns out the guy that he's trying to reach is his best friend and colleague. And so anyways, he gets out into the real world and goes to a bar, and he gets stabbed. He gets killed, whatever. By an unknown assailant, unidentified assailant. Now, I have 2 things that this movie made me think of. Now, the next scene is a younger guy waking up in his apartment. This takes place in LA in the 90s. And this apartment had... I don't know how else to describe it other than it looked like maybe Mayan or Aztec ruin columns kind of architecture. And I swear to God, Spenny, now I haven't done any research to validate this, but have you seen Predator 2?
I think I have.
Okay.
But I don't know where you're going with this one.
I am convinced they used the exact same set for this, because there is a scene in Predator 2. And again, I haven't seen Predator 2 in probably 15 years either. But
I was gonna say,
things like this,
for
some reason, stick in my memory. There is a scene where there's an apartment and there's these weird ass columns with what look like Mayan and Aztec type architecture on the columns, and it is, I swear, the exact same set. I think that
so.
Okay,
this has been in a movie before. This is a Frank Lloyd Wright house. It is the Enos house, and it was in Blade Runner, the original.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, or both.
Yeah, so it's
or both.
Maybe I did not see that, but I will. We can check on it.
Okay,
but so Blade Runner they used the same house, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So they used this house to kind of showcase a apartment in I assume L.A.
Yeah.
L.A.
Yeah.
Downtown L.A.
Yeah.
But it is a house of Frank Lloyd Wright's.
Very interesting.
So it's kind of interesting.
Okay. Now the second thing. Now at this point, now this new character Doug Funny is introduced, and whoever this actor is.
Can I read a synopsis first before you go into that?
No. Okay. One quick thing.
Okay. Go.
He looks exactly like the guy who plays Ricky in Trailer Park Boys. You see the similarity there?
Yeah, I got it.
Obviously skinnier, no sideburns,
right?
But exactly the same. Maybe just 50 pounds lighter.
He also looks like the guy from Boardwalk Empire that has a patch on his eye. That has one eye. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I didn't see that.
He's like a shooter.
He's a shooter.
He's a shooter.
He's a shooter.
Shoots guns
with a patch over his eye.
Yeah, he's got one eye.
Oh,
but
nice. Okay, yeah.
Anyway,
do you have a give us?
Yeah,
I've
got a synopsis.
We'll see now that we're 15 minutes into this.
All right, here we go. Hannon Fuller, a computer scientist, uncovers the world they live in is not what they think, and is part of a computer simulated world, and leaves a message for his colleague Douglas Hall. Unfortunately, the message is intercepted, and Hannon is murdered. Douglas must figure out the mystery of Hannon's murder, the learnings of Hannon's unknown daughter, and try to uncover the hidden message that was never delivered to him. It turns out not only is he looking to answer those, oh boy. It turns out he not only is searching for the answers, but he is having issues remembering chunks of time from the major incidents occur. The truth, cannot read. Oh boy. Anyways, the truth, it will be far more than Douglas expected.
Nice, man. Killed it. Killed it.
Sorry. All right.
No, it was great.
Anyways.
Well,
no, you really set it up well, because I don't think you have to spend there's a lot of things that happen very quickly in this film.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to point out is after he wakes up that you mentioned, the car that he drives, this is literally like the only car they highlight is the car that Douglas Hall drives.
The Porsche?
And it's a 1968 Porsche 911 T, which is a gorgeous car, and it also is unique because it only has a driver's side rear or mirror. Look, what's that thing called?
Side mirror.
Side mirror. Thank you. Oh, great.
Oh, man.
We're off to a lightning start.
For those of you that don't know,
anyway,
Spenny is a car nut, and
yep,
knows all this arcane knowledge of car stuffs.
So I knew the car, but I had to confirm. So I was trying to type. I was like, I know it's a Porsche 911 T, and I was like, I'm not sure what year it is. There is a website called IMCDB, which is Internet Movie Car Database. And so that confirmed it for me. So people crowdsource it, which is nice. Pretty cool.
Nice.
But,
okay.
After that, we get to meet another main character, which is Officer McBain, who's the Allstate guy.
Allstate guy.
comes down to have Mr. Dougie identify the body to make sure it's like, is this the person? And it's kind of a curious thing because he says, does he have any family or anything like that? And he's like, not that I know of. And so he's the next person to identify him.
Yeah. There's a few funny things with this. So the dialogue in this movie is trash.
Yeah,
it's bad. The acting, trash. For the most part. The main guy just sucks, right?
This is the only film I've ever seen him in, and I couldn't looking at his IMDb. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but I was like, this is literally nothing I've ever seen before. So,
but there's one scene, especially with when the cop and the main guy are together.
Yeah,
that's just the weirdest stuff. At one point, Doug gets arrested for this guy's murder, right? And a full SWAT team shows up in this guy's apartment, right? And arrests him.
Right.
And then the next scene, they're just chilling in the cop bullpen, right? He's not in an interrogation room. He's just chilling, smoking out in this lobby, essentially, of the
right
police station. And the detective says, where were you on the night of the who cares? And he says, I was working late with Whitney, who's the other programmer. And the next line, so he says, I was working late with Whitney. I told you that. And the cop says, was anyone with you? Or did anyone see you? He just told him that he was with his coworker the whole night, right?
Right. Yeah. Just there's constant kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so they're trying to figure out what's going on here and who could have killed him. And then this woman shows up, this mystery woman, claims to be the guy's daughter. The Fuller, the old guy that died, and Doug, they've worked together for years, best friends. The old guy never mentioned a daughter, and so it seems pretty suspicious. Who is this person? But then they they both act like they know each other and don't say why.
Yeah.
You get the sense that the daughter knows more than she's admitting and is sharing with Doug, because she clearly has some type of advantage over him in terms of knowledge about the two of them.
Right.
And so I don't know,
it's obviously something's fishy's going on, and like the immediate thing for Doug to do is he's like, I'm gonna jump into the system. I got to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Like without ever being in it, the whole point of this like system is like they get into the simulation and stuff, and it's like he's the guy that got killed is the only one that's been in it, Hannon Fuller. And so he's like, I'm going in, and his programmer friend Whitney's like, you got to go in for 60 minutes. 60 minutes is the max. You can't go anything more than that. And he's like, put it on to 120 minutes. And he's like, dude, you gotta only do 60 minutes, otherwise it's just gonna wreck you. And he's like, put it on 120 minutes. So
they're friends, right? They're friends. And and Spenny's not exaggerating all. They say it's 60 minutes. No, 120 minutes. No, 60 minutes. No, 120 minutes. No, 60 minutes. No, 120 minutes.
Yeah.
And then at some point, he just sets it to 120, and then that's the end of it.
That's it. 120. He's like, okay,
it's not
whatever you want to do, man.
Like, this isn't kind of slapstick comedy. It's very seriously portrayed. So he goes in for the first time and assumes the identity of his avatar, who he can't remember the name of. Doesn't matter.
His consciousness transference, as they call it.
Yep.
And he moves into Ferguson.
Ferguson. Yep.
Yep. Couldn't think of
So he kind of stumbles around the sim for a while and then gets yanked out. Nothing really happens other than him understanding how real it is. They knew that they knew they were getting close to, I don't know, some kind of milestone, but this was Doug's first indication that it was good to go. Pretty much, it's exactly what they thought it was going to be in terms of a very real simulation with conscious people within the system.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting. So, like, every character, like, when they do the simulation, they have to develop or build a character that looks like them for this transformation, or they ironically do that. And it's kind of interesting because obviously the concept is that they're moving to LA, and the time date I think is 1937 or 38.
Yeah.
But the thing that was kind of interesting to me is, so you learn that it's a simulation. So that's something that these people have built. But at the same time, like, you see a newspaper and it's talking about the Hindenburg disaster. So it kind of had me wondering, like, it felt like the part of this thing was trying to tell you is, like, we're all living in the simulation because the Hindenburg blew up in our real life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this concept of, is this reality? Is there more beyond that, and that kind of thing? So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it goes, right? That's where the movie heads.
Exactly.
Because, I guess we can cut out a lot of this stuff because this woman that claims to be his daughter kind of appears and disappears. And at one point, like we said, Doug gets arrested for the murder, but then gets bailed out because he then develops this alibi because the daughter shows up and says, "Yo, he was with me."
Yeah.
But then later on, the cops try to find her, and she's completely off the radar. There's no trace of her, no trace of him ever having a daughter. But somehow Doug finds this because of some tracks that he went through in the simulated world. He follows similar, I guess, trails to find her in his world, and she's a completely different person.
Yeah, he ends up having to buy off, like, the driver that picked him up, and this Jane Fuller, the daughter, or the so-called daughter, and buys information and finds this person that turns out to be no idea who he is, but looks just like the daughter that he's looking for.
And then importantly, he confronts her. He, tries to meet her, but she doesn't recognize him. And then the next scene, then she does recognize him, and now things are starting to get a little fishy. Because then at this point you kind of find out that the note that Fuller left for Doug in the simulation was him. It basically tells Fuller to go on a drive, go drive as far as you can. And so, but one of the simulated people intercepts the letter and does that on his own.
It's kind of like Whitney's avatar, who plays a bartender.
He does that and realizes that the world just ends. And so comes to the understanding without having any language for it, right? Because this would be in the 30s. Without having any language to describe what he saw, he basically understood that his world doesn't exist, for lack of a better term. And I don't know. Then there's this thing where then there was they try to kill each other or something, and
this is one of those scenes. So there's a scene where Doug he has to go back into the simulator, and he's trying to uncover more information about what happened and all this stuff, and he meets the Hannon Fuller, so the old guy who initially got killed. He meets the kind of avatar person, and the avatar is kind of telling him that, I seem to remember things about, like I don't remember being there, but I have flashes of memories of like what happened and all this stuff. And so they go back to this like dance club from like the beginning of the movie, and they go to the bartender, and the bartender realizes that he's come back and kind of tries to hide away. And Doug's character, Ferguson tries to go, or he's embodied in Ferguson, goes to like try to find him and stuff. And then they have this like shootout fight thing for like, 10 minutes or whatever it is. And I'm trying to think, like eventually he dies, right?
No, he doesn't die. Whitney pulls him out.
Yeah, that's right.
Whitney pulls him out. He was going to die. He's going to be drowned by Whitney's avatar, Ash.
Right. And
Whitney pulls him out. So then he goes on this hunt to try and find the daughter. And when he realizes that the person who he finds that is the same body as the daughter doesn't recognize him at all, he then goes on this drive, and as far as he can, because he's suspicious now of his own reality, he goes on a drive and basically runs out of the world and realizes that crap, he's a simulation.
He hits the computer grid that's all green, and he can't go any further.
And so then by this time, the daughter that he met as the daughter kind of takes control of that woman that he just met that doesn't recognize him, calls him up, and she's like, "Yeah, we got to talk." And he says, "I already know. I know what the deal is." So what actually happens is that, so now at this point, he's a simulation. His entire world is simulated. He has consciousness, but he understands that he was created just like he created a simulation. And he talks to the daughter. She, I guess, is one of the people that made his simulation, and revealed to him that, well, he asked the very important question, how many simulated worlds are there? And she said something like, there were countless, right? Or there were many, maybe something like
thousands or whatever. Yeah.
But the important thing, or the distinction, was that his world is the only simulated world that made its own simulated world. And that was unique. And so
it was just like Dwight making his own Half-Life or whatever it was.
His Second Life creator.
Second Life of
making a Second Life. Yeah. And so because at the beginning, when this daughter first showed up, she came there under the premise that she was going to inherit the company from her dad and shut the program down.
Yep.
At the time in the movie, it was very somewhat, it was framed in the sense of she was kind of this greedy, it was driven by greed because she met with these lawyers that had no impact on the movie whatsoever. But it turns out that she was actually trying to get in as the daughter to shut the company down so that the simulation could be shut down.
Right.
So that his simulated world wouldn't find out.
Right.
Yeah, that's the kind of the kicker of the movie, is that when he realizes that he's a simulation.
It's a simulation of a simulation, and that's real. That's the real mind bender there.
Yep.
I mean, you kind of build up to the fact that they realize that it's a simulated world, and they can't quite figure out what's going on. But
and that's what Fuller was trying to tell Doug, and it turns out that Doug actually did kill Fuller. It was just Doug is an avatar for this guy David.
Yep.
And who's actually married to the daughter, whatever her name is.
Yep. Jane.
And so David plugged into the system to take control of Doug's body and killed Fuller, so that because he found out and they didn't want him to ruin their simulation. or to take it any
Right.
further.
Right.
Now I find it a bit ironic
where
that the daughter Jane goes in to shut the system down, to shut the company down, so that they wouldn't find out. But then she tells the cop everything.
Yeah. Well, and he acts like he is just
chill.
Like he's so used to the plugged in, plugged out. He's like, get out of my world.
Yeah.
Go unplug.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah. He
all
understands
stuff.
all the terminology.
Yeah.
So here's the movie is called The 13th Floor, as if the 13th floor were some kind of important destination, right? The 13th floor just happened to be where the mainframe was for the simulated world's simulation.
Well, that's where the thrilling element comes in, because, you know, the 13th floor has all this lore and things about, you know, things can't be on the 13th floor because it's spooky and all this other stuff.
Oh,
so
really?
They try to tie that element in. Yeah, because it has no relation to the book itself that it was based on. So,
yeah, I don't pretend to. I'm not good with titles, right? I title the podcast episodes in a way that I think is funny, right?
Yeah,
but I don't claim to be this expert in making great titles,
right?
But I can recognize a bad title, and The 13th Floor is a bad title.
That's a terrible title.
I don't know what could they have called this.
Well, that the biggest point that you made is, like, if you watch the trailer of this and it's called The 13th Floor, it doesn't make any sense.
No,
it's so confusing.
Well, I think the trailer plays it up, right? On the 13th floor, you can go to where reality doesn't enter reality.
Yeah,
right. And the trailer makes it kind of sells it, right? But they show a scene where I think there's maybe 2 instances in the entire runtime where they show them pressing the elevator button for floor 13.
Yep.
But it wasn't done in a way that was, again, preparing for this destination, right? It was, they walk in and bang, 13, right?
Right.
And I don't remember them even saying the 13th floor. I don't even think they said in passing, oh, I got to go down to the 13th floor.
No.
Right.
Yeah. No. It's more about, like, the computers and stuff, and it has nothing to do with the floor itself. It's like it kind of feels like they made the film and then they're like, oh, what should we call it? And they're like 13th floor, and they're like, oh, maybe we should just add some elevator scenes where they just push a button that says 13th floor.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
So one thing that was kind of interesting. So the what's his name?
Whitney.
What's the Whitney? So Whitney's played by Vincent D'Onofrio. He's popular, or would be best be known by his Law and Order Criminal Intent. But one thing that I thought was kind of interesting is, I did not realize this, but he is the bug guy from Men in Black. He's the guy that gets the bug in him, and he's like walking around all like
he's
crazy.
Edgar?
Yeah, he's Edgar.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So it was just kind of interesting seeing him. I had no idea, because I've seen him in Law and Order. So I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy from Law and Order. And then I was researching, and I was like, wait, he was in Men in Black? Like, which character was he? And it's Edgar.
Looks nothing like that.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah, it doesn't look like him at all.
He's normally,
that's why
he is blonde, right? And in Men in Black, has dark hair. So I think that
he has dark hair.
He has dark.
I think they bleached his hair for this movie. But yeah,
interesting.
No, it's just kind of an interesting little piece of it, because that's all I could think about when I saw him. But yeah. But okay. Where are we at? So I mean,
I think we wrapped it up. The thing to kind of take home with is then there's this end conflict where, so Fuller, the guy that in the simulation made the simulated world, he was using the simulated. He was jacking into the simulation to like hook up with young girls. Very strange,
weird,
right?
Yeah, it doesn't fit the character at all.
No,
but
it's very strange. He was using it as his own kind of personal. What's the harem or something, or brothel kind of thing,
right? Yeah.
It didn't go any further than that, right? That's the extent to what he was using that world for.
Yeah, that's
very strange.
It's
computer genius.
German, by the way,
computer
very proper
genius
German.
Made this, whatever. Okay, so, but the two levels above that, David, the guy who jacks into Doug, it wasn't clear if him and Jane made this world. I was kind of unclear about that. They at least could control some of it or something.
Yeah, she gave the impression that she kind of developed it.
Yeah.
Towards the end. And one thing that we haven't talked about is Whitney's character, Ash, when someone dies in the simulation, the person gets transferred to the person from the avatar to the user. Yeah. So Ash became present in Whitney or Whitney. Yeah. And then at the end, there's a scene where Doug gets shot and killed because David is in him. Yeah. And then that Doug actually transfers to David. Yeah. So there's this kind of unintended consequence that, the person that they're trying to take over moves into your body if they get killed.
I think that it's because there's this graphic, right, where they show the two brains. There's the brain of the person that's getting jacked into the system, and then there's the consciousness that is being taken control of. And the graphic, they swap places. And so it makes sense then if whoever dies in the simulation, the other person wakes up because it's already been transferred.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Good point.
But Jane, the daughter, orchestrated this because the killing of David as Doug, because she fell in love. Remember, they're married, but David, the highest end user, was using Doug's simulated world to just kill people and stuff because to him it didn't matter. They weren't real. And he fell into this dark place where he became this terrible person. But Doug was basically the persona of David, the part of David's persona that was what remained as good, even though he never portrayed being a good guy in the movie at all. And then Jane came down and said, "You're this amazing person. You're so kind and stuff." And he never did anything bad, but there was never evidence of him doing anything good either.
Right.
So whatever. But basically David was going to told Jane that he was going to kill her if she ever stood in his way or something like that. It doesn't matter. And so Jane orchestrated it. Jane orchestrated the killing of David.
She wanted a new boo. She wanted a new boo.
Yep.
So she's,
Yep. So she basically got the cop to kill him.
Right.
Because he knew when he was going to jack into the system. And I'm thinking, aren't they just sitting next to each other in the real world? Right?
Yeah.
They're just sitting next to each other. I mean,
it's
kind of weird because
they're both laying on beds with like
he's on a bed and she's just in the living room sitting on the floor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have these little VR headsets. So anyways, Doug wakes up in the real world, or is it? Because who's to say how far down it goes? Now that wasn't
the CGI. The CGI looked pretty terrible once they walk outside. Because they walk outside and it's like they're on this beach, and they see Jane or whatever her name is now. never explains that, but her dad is down there and he's the German guy,
Yeah.
like, talking. And then you look over and there's like this, it looks like a hotel or like apartment complex, like right in the middle. And it's like in the water. Like it makes no sense. And then it's supposed to be 2024.
Yeah.
So in 2 years from now, like there's all these skyscrapers and stuff. And did they specifically say where they are? I don't remember that. I don't think so.
I imagine it was just LA, right?
Yeah, it's probably LA, but there's like these super new skyscrapers and stuff, but like nothing that would be built in 2024, which, I mean, to be fair, it was 25 years ago. So, which is weird to think.
Yeah. 99. I thought it was 89 for a second. Yeah. So, okay. Again, as what we said at the beginning, I thought this was going to be a ghetto Matrix. And I thought we'd have a lot to clown on. However, it's easy to compare this to the Matrix, right? Not only because it was released in the same year, same quarter, but it's about people realizing that they're in a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that in the Matrix, it's their real consciousness just being fooled, right?
Yeah. Right.
This is an actual simulation of simulated consciousness.
Right.
And so I think it's kind of unfair to compare the two.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one was a huge blockbuster, right? And this one was something, I don't know, so it had probably some turd budget. Oh, we never said.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. The budget on this was 16 million, and I did look up what the Matrix was. So the Matrix was 63 million back in 1999.
Okay.
So obviously, 4 times the budget. And then the box office, it was about 18.5. And in today's numbers with the box office is about 32 million. So it broke even-ish, maybe. I don't know.
Nice.
But yeah, when you compare it to the Matrix, obviously totally different, scale of, what people thought of it and all that kind of thing. So,
okay. Before we get into the scores and stuff, I teased, well, not really teased, but said that we'll talk more about simulation
one of the things you want
hypothesis
to
and
talk about.
stuff. So it's more popular now, especially with Elon Musk and stuff, this idea of, are we living in a simulation? Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Very much. So
definitely.
It's become very popular to kind of meme on and just kind of think, oh, it doesn't matter because we're living in a simulation or whatever. It's fun it's easy to joke about now. It's how far it's permeated our culture anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But so for those that aren't aware, obviously this came out in 99 and it was based on a book that Spenny said it was from the 70s. Is that
64.
64.
64.
Okay.
Yep.
So we've actually been thinking about this as a culture for a while now. Even if that book predates, computers that are relevant, right?
Yeah.
But what made this simulation hypothesis popular today is this guy called Nick Bostrom. Now, he published this, I don't want to call it a research paper. I think it's sometimes referred to as a research paper, but it's a philosophical argument called "Are You Living in a Simulation?" And that's what the paper is titled, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I don't claim to be an expert in this, but the argument for that paper boils down to basically, it's more likely that we are, and this is not a joke, right? That we are a simulated world. It's more likely that we are a simulated world than a real world. And he goes into all these arguments, and it centers on 3 main the assumption that one of the following three things is true. So the first thing would be that any technologically advanced society, civilization, will go extinct before it can meet a technological advancement sufficient enough to start simulating worlds. So that would be like, presently we can't simulate worlds, but someday we might. But what if a meteorite takes us out, right?
Well, isn't that what the metaverse is?
Oh, maybe that's what it's trying to be. So that's option, or that's kind of argument.
That's interesting.
One.
Yeah.
So any sufficiently advanced society will go extinct prior to the achievement of being able to make a simulated world.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Option 2 is that a society has the capability of making a simulated world, but chooses not to. Okay. Option 3 is that the simulated, or the society that can will. And so he uses some probability to basically infer that the probability of 1 and 2, so again, 1, societies going extinct before they can, 2, a capable society that chooses not to, those probabilities approach 0, so are very unlikely to occur. But the probability of the third approaches 1, which basically means it's almost guaranteed.
Interesting.
And so was this just based off of nothing, right? There's a few things that we can kind of look back to on ourselves. So first of all, it's very obvious right now that we don't have the capability to simulate consciousness or create a simulated world, right? The argument starts because on the premise that we can't today, but with enough time and resources and energy, because it would take a lot of energy to do this, there's nothing to suggest that we can't. Okay. So that's the first argument, really, that
got it.
Given our current history of simulating kind of ancestral societies in movies and video games, we have this kind of predilection towards an interest in that, right? Creating these scenarios where we, for entertainment purposes or education purposes, of creating ancestral, somewhat pseudo societies. Now, the argument actually is, or that the argument for this simulation hypothesis is actually agnostic of any motivations for doing it in the first place. It doesn't matter if there's a sufficiently advanced society that wants to do it or doesn't want to do it. It just depends on, are they capable of doing it? And so this paper, I've read it a long time ago, so I can't really remember much more about it. It is freely available. You can just Google simulation hypothesis or simulation argument, Nick Bostrom. And it's just, you can just pull it up as a PDF. But it's very interesting, right? When, to hear things like, statistically, it's more likely that we are a simulation than not. Now here's the main kicker for me anyways. As far as I know, and I'm not aware of any advances towards this goal, but as far as I'm aware, testing a hypothesis like this is not falsifiable, which is the distinction between any experiment that should be done and should not be done. And so that might seem obvious, right? But it's too often in science, there are things that lead to confirmation bias. So if you have an hypothesis that you are convinced is true, and you design an experiment so that the data can only prove that it's true and not be shown to be falsifiable, then it's not an experiment worth doing, right?
Right.
This bleeds into philosophy and other areas of kind of academia as a broad thing too, right? But it's oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, so this Nick Bostrom, so he is a philosopher, is that
right?
Right?
So he has, as far as I know, he does have training in theoretical physics. Okay. But he I think he's a professor at Oxford, and as I think they have a department called Future of Humanity or something, or Humanities Futures, something like that. He wrote this as a philosophical type research paper.
Got it.
But I think he has training in theoretical physics and computation type stuff.
No, that's really interesting.
Yeah. But for me, it breaks down because it's not something that can be, because how would you test this, right? One might suggest that, okay, well, to be able to prove this wrong, what would we need to know? Well, we would need to know if it's possible to build a computer such that a simulated consciousness could arise.
Right.
Okay, so we throw everything at it. Let's say we want to know if it's possible, so we just start trying to make it happen.
Right.
That's not really, it's kind of, you either make it or it doesn't make it, right? But it's not something that from the outset can be proven wrong ahead of time. Personally for me, I've never really bought into it. Another argument, I guess, against is that, like this movie portrayed, actually, once you start making a simulated world, there's technically nothing stopping that world from making its own simulation. Right? And so once one happens, then, like this argument is saying, there's countless others that can be the result of that. Right?
Right.
Okay. So let's assume that there's essentially, energy limitations and matter limitations being, an obvious thing.
Right.
Let's assume there's a near infinite amount of simulations. So that would mean there's three possibilities then. We are either the real world, we are one of countless simulations in the middle, or we're at the very end.
Yeah.
The last one that hasn't developed simulation capabilities yet, right? So
is that sort of the argument where we're the only ones that we're the only artificial, or we're the only ones with like what's the word I'm looking for? Intelligent life. So we're the only ones intelligent life, and we haven't been able to uncover anything else. So would that go into that kind of bucket of?
Well, I think
that's part of the simulation, is that we're not able to get.
Oh, interesting.
We're not able to find simulate or artificial life or intelligent life because we are the final, or we're like close to.
That actually kind of that does, I think. So I think what you're referring to is called the Fermi paradox.
Okay.
And it's basically about how the universe, as we understand it, is large enough to accommodate other life.
Yeah.
And human civilization has only really been, as far that we think of today, has only really been around for a couple hundred years, right? I mean, humanity's been around for, I don't know what the number is, 100,000 years or something like that. But it's nothing in the sense of the universe timescale, right? Of something like 13 billion years. So it's more likely that other advanced life has developed. The paradox is that why haven't we seen that yet? Or why don't we have any record of that?
Right.
Part of that is kind of dovetails into that first criteria that I was talking about, and how it could be explained by the fact that any sufficiently advanced civilization just goes extinct before it can break through this barrier.
Right.
Of it's kind of this like barrier of crossing into this spacefaring race, right?
Right.
That, and there are other barriers too. You might imagine the barrier of crossing from single cell life to multicellular life. That would be a barrier.
Sure.
Developing intelligence in the first place, that's a pretty big barrier. Developing language, communication, technology, those are all huge barriers. So that kind of does dovetail into this. For the simulation part of it, though, it could just be as simple as, well, they're just not simulating it, right? We are in a simulation, and all of the space and that we can see and that we're measuring is just rendered such that it's enough to. So one example would be like everything would be you and I, assuming we're real, right? We're each perceiving this conversation. The listeners are perceiving this conversation in their car, on their walk, wherever they are. And if they look down, we can look down and see our microphones, and we can see the kind of the fuzzy stuff. If the listeners are driving in their car, they might look at their hands or their steering wheel, the clock. Out the window, they might see some trees with some leaves, but that resolution is very fuzzy, and it's not necessary to render it in any detail. Things like stars, if we look out, the astronomers look out and see some fuzzy shit, well, it doesn't have to be there, right? It just has to be rendered in a fuzzy way. And so maybe it's just that for our simulation, they didn't bother simulating aliens, right? Because that's just another thing they just want to look at us.
Right. That's true.
So for me, I don't spend much time thinking about it, because I personally don't think that we're in a simulation, because of the fact that we're having this conversation and the fact that we're thinking that this is a possibility. That doesn't disprove or doesn't prove that we are in or out of a simulation, right?
Right.
But to me, it suggests that the fact that we're thinking about it now and the consequences of it now, to me, suggests that any sufficiently advanced civilization that can probably wouldn't, because that puts them into the category of I'm probably now in the middle, where because right now, as where we sit right now, as I see it, is that we're either at the beginning, we're the real people, or we're at the very end. Because the fact that we don't have it yet, we don't have the capability to simulate yet, means that we're probably at the end of the chain, if there is a chain. And that changes the probability from one in infinite that we are, or infinity to one that we are, to something like 50-50.
Right.
And those odds are, a little bit better.
Yeah.
So for these reasons, I mean, it's cool to think about, right? It's a cool thought experiment. But it does kind of just come down to, it's more
really
philosophy,
interesting that,
right?
Yeah. It's cool that we've come from this movie to this conversation, because it's very interesting. It goes well beyond what the movie's contents were, but it kind of,
that's the thing, though.
Dovetailed
that's the thing.
in,
Why
it's very interesting. Yeah.
My score we're going to change now to the scores, I'm giving this score in the context of the larger argument, right? And it was cool when they showed that when Doug realizes he's a simulation and he tells Jane, "How can you love me? I'm not even real."
Mm-hmm.
It's different than the Matrix. And it's, it's just it's kind of a cooler puzzle.
Yeah. Well, I will say that I gave my rating before I even knew it was the Matrix came a month after. So,
okay.
I mean, I don't know. Yep.
So yeah, I'll just say right now, I gotta find okay. I give this a 6.9.
Wow.
Yep.
The third 6.9 you've given?
No. Yes. Yes. I gave it to Alien and Atom Project.
Interesting. So I'm going to say I think you might have talked yourself into this beyond what the movie was.
Yes.
So I did say, so the movie is very interesting. I honestly thought the story plot and those kinds of things were kind of interesting and somewhat unpredictable. And I did like the premise of the film. But I think the biggest thing is like the visual effects and the CGI. Not that good.
It sucked.
Yeah. I mean, that final scene, the final scene of this movie is just so bad. It's really like they are sitting on a balcony and they just put a green screen and it's just like this pixelated thing. And that was the biggest thing that interested me, that bothered me. I was really interested in the fact that like the simulated computer and like the AI being able to develop its own AI kind of essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of interesting. So I gave it a 4.5, which I thought was pretty favorable.
Yep.
In the context.
That puts it just under Mars Attacks. You gave it 4.6.
Fair enough. That's about right. You're saying at a 6.9, you're saying that you would watch this movie multiple times.
No, I think, and I haven't thought about this. Well, I've thought about it enough.
Okay.
I thought about
what are the other films that you have at 6.9 are
Alien,
and
Atom Project.
You got to be fucking kidding me. So this is in line with Alien and Atom Project? Again, I think in the broader context into this. I think you have very good points.
I wrote this score before our conversation.
No, you had the ending. I lockstep. Everything that you talked about in those last 15 minutes are awesome, but
this is the only movie I've seen that does that though.
That has nothing to do with the film itself. And you are talking about theory and those types of things, which is not this movie. This movie is about a random book from 1964 that talks about virtual reality. And so you're gonna have to live with it. But I think you're living in a simulation.
I think I'm living in a simulation where you chew me out for every score that I give.
I am not.
Yes.
No.
My whole life is a simulation to you. Here's the thing about, for me, what it boils down to, simulation hypothesis.
Okay. Give it to me.
There is no logical argument that you can tell me that I am real. Think about that.
True.
You Especially can't right convince
now,
me that
I don't even know if you're a real person right now. Dude,
therefore, my 6.9 is just as valid as your 4.6.
Is it soft or hard? Is it soft or hard?
Well, this is a soft 6.9. Because otherwise I'd round up to 7. This is a soft 6.9.
Oh God.
You know what?
What?
Maybe all the typical fucking days I've had in my life are glitches in the simulation.
Totally.
Maybe that could explain the direction my life has taken because of all the typical days I've had to navigate. All the rude people I've met in my life that were just kinks in the simulation.
Oh my gosh.
The programmers having a time.
All right. Well, do you want to talk about the next simulation?
Yeah. What are we gonna watch?
So I broke it. I'm going decades again. So I broke it down. We got 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s,
and today
2010s, 2020s.
5 decades?
Yes. No, 6.
6 decades.
Yes.
Let's do something recent. Let's do 2020s.
2020s? We're doing the wave.
The fuck is that?
It's on Peacock. I'll have to give you my login.
God, this fucking Peacock. God. No, I pick something else. I don't want to support that shit.
Okay. Well,
2010s.
Riddick, HBO Max.
All right. Actually, wasn't this one of the things that we talked about this show? When we were conceptualizing this show, you were saying
it was a different one. Yeah. Well, maybe it was actually.
Okay, for the audience,
I can't remember.
We've been talking about this show for a long time.
I'll look at
it before we set out to make it, and we were thinking about what we could do first, and I was eventually said Tremors 6 because it was the worst thing I'd ever seen. And Spenny said, we got to watch one of these Riddick movies because I watched it and he said it was the worst thing that he had ever seen. And
that's right.
Seemed to have forgotten about it until now. But now Spenny's telling me that it's not even the right one.
No, this one actually might be somewhat decent. The one that I was thinking of, I'm trying to find it here.
There's Riddick. There's Chronicles of Riddick.
No, it is Riddick. Yeah, you're right.
So we're watching the bad one.
We might be watching the bad one.
All right.
All right, brother.
All right.
This is the one that has aliens similar to
Aliens?
No, monsters similar to Tremors. The walking ones.
Oh, the Shriekers. That's right.
Yep. That's on HBO Max, so you can watch it.
All right. Well, this turned out
it's too bad you didn't want to pick the wave, but whatever. I didn't even know it might have been good, but whatever.
Whatever. Well, this turned out to be a longer episode than I thought. I thought we were going to have about 30 minutes of stuff to talk about.
Well, yeah, that's because you went into a subliminal chant and you started talking about theories.
Subliminal chant. Just remember, there's nothing you can tell me that will convince me that I'm real. There's no logical argument.
Oh, yeah. Is this Nick Bostrom guy? Is he atheist?
I don't know.
Okay. Just curious.
It would be reasonable to guess that.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of. There was some guy. I'm trying to think of his name. I don't know if it really matters, but there's something. I remember somebody talking about this. Maybe it was Richard Dawson. Yeah.
Dawkins. Richard Dawkins.
Yeah, Richard Dawkins. You got it. I feel like he had some conversations about kind of similar things, but not on that level that you're talking about. So, and he's an atheist. I know that.
Very famous one.
Yep, very.
Well, if any of the listeners want to weigh in on whether or not we are real, maybe this podcast is simulated. I don't know. Maybe there's a simulated universe where our podcast is a success. Think about that.
What are you talking about? It already is a success. I don't know what you're trying to imply, but anyways.
Yep. Or isn't a success, I should have said.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Good spin. All right. Yeah.
If you have thoughts about whether we're a simulation, please reach out to us at boys@ascension.com.
That's right. You can find us on our socials at Ascension, the number 2, TEN. We're on now Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we do have a YouTube now, which is Ascension 210 Podcast.
Yep.
So we're up, and we also have links to all of these on our website at Ascension, the number 2, TEN.com. So check that out as well.
Yep. And
we also have links to the podcast. So if you want to hear it, listen to it
in the description.
Click to it, and then links to the description.
Links to the description in the description.
That's crazy.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope. I don't have anything else. We might plug our friend Brian has a new song, so we might play that for the next month or so because we got a new Song of Summer. So we'll plug that in.
Summer banger.
So you might hear it at the end of this song. Bam. It's a fun song, so I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yep.
You can find it on Spotify in the links in the description.
Yep.
So
all the links.
That's right. And he's Jad. I'm Spenny.
Thanks for listening.
Until the next one. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye.